The farmers outside Boston. Revolutions are often remembered by their famous men: Washington, Adams, Jefferson. But before the Republic had its marble faces, it had mud. It had cold roads, smoke over distant rooftops, and thousands of ordinary men standing outside Boston, wondering whether they had just become an army. My name is Benedict. No, not that one. Today I will tell you about the farmers outside Boston. After Lexington and Concord, the British made it back to Boston. That much Americans remember. What they often forget is what happened next. The militiamen did not simply fire their shots and return to plows. They stayed. Men began pouring in from across Massachusetts and beyond. Farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, boys with muskets, fathers with poor powder and strong opinions. They came by road, by rumor, by alarm bell, and by the end of April 1775, Boston was no longer merely occupied. It was surrounded. This is one of the strangest early moments of the Revolution, because there was not yet a true American army. No polished chain of command, no national uniform, no shared doctrine, no stable supply system worthy of the name. There was simply a gathering, a swelling ring of armed provincials around the town where British regulars were trapped. If you had looked at them plainly, you might not have seen the beginning of a nation. You might have seen a very large argument with muskets. And yet, there they were, holding the line, refusing to disperse, making something dangerous clear. The events of April 19th had not frightened the countryside into obedience. They had done the opposite. The men outside Boston were not all seasoned fighters. Many had little military experience. Most were not romantics. They knew crops needed tending. Animals needed feeding. Families needed them home. Which is precisely why their presence mattered. These were not men with nothing to lose. They were men with every reason to leave. And still they stayed. That is one of the hidden miracles of the Revolution. Not merely that men fought, but that ordinary men accepted inconvenience, uncertainty, and danger before anyone could promise them success. Before the Declaration, before independence, before anyone could say with confidence what, exactly, they were becoming. Inside Boston, the British could see the countryside hardening against them. Outside Boston, the militia could feel their own numbers growing. Day by day, a local clash became something larger. The siege began not with polished strategy, but with stubborn accumulation. One town sends men, then another, then another. Soon the British Army is not facing a mob. It is facing a people who have decided, however imperfectly, to remain in the field. That changes the psychology of power. Empires can suppress outbreaks. What unnerves them is persistence. And persistence was exactly what these farmers embodied. They were not famous. Not yet. Most would leave little trace in the grand narrative. No portraits, no state dinners, no monuments with pigeons perched on bronze hats. But the Revolution required them more than it required eloquence. Because speeches do not surround a city. Ordinary men do. The farmers outside Boston helped create the first living proof that resistance would not be isolated. That this would not be just Boston's grievance, or Massachusetts's grief, or one day's bloodshed on Lexington Green. It was becoming a continental crisis, and perhaps, though no one yet fully knew it, an American war. There is something deeply unfashionable about these men. They were not refined, they were not ideologically tidy, they did not all speak in the language later generations would use. But they understood a simple truth. If they went home too soon, the meaning of April would be decided for them. So they stayed near Boston, in rough camps, with uncertain leadership, and more resolve than comfort. Later, Washington would arrive and shape these men into something more recognizably national. But before Washington, before the Continental Army, before the flags and phrases settled into legend, there were just farmers outside Boston, and they did not move. Nations are often born twice, first in argument, then in endurance. The farmers outside Boston were part of that second birth. They were not glamorous men. They were useful men, necessary men, men who understood that history sometimes asks ordinary people to remain where comfort tells them to leave. That is not the most celebrated form of courage, but it may be the most foundational, and before America had an army, it had men with dirt on their boots, standing outside Boston, refusing to go home.